Thank you, Patrick. Ready, begin. I pledge
I pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the
to
flag
the flag of the United States of America and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all.
Thank you. And we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. For agenda changes and deletions for the current agenda only, public hearing item 4B, which is the resolution regarding the appeal of the Historic Cultural Preservation Committee's approval of the historic site plan and architectural review for the Haas residential project located at 26 6th Street in the A Street Historic District. This item will be noticed for the agenda, but is to be continued to a date certain, December 7th. And so that will not be heard on this evening's agenda. Thank you. Now we go on to council comment, and I will start with Council Member McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's been some activity I'd like to report back on. The most serious, shall we say, is the Home Sonoma Leadership Council, which I sit on. And at its September 24th meeting, County Council notified all members of that commission or the council that it was formed incorrectly and was no longer functional. And so no actions could be taken by that body. They have a backup plan, which is to reconstitute the body that predated that body, and that's called the Continuum of Care from 2 years ago. And that body's first task will be to ratify all decisions over the last 2 years regarding homelessness through our regional homelessness group, our HUD mandated group called the Home Sonoma Leadership Council. So that was pretty much a huge announcement at that meeting, and it pushes back what cities around the county had been looking for, which was for each city to have representation on our homelessness issues. And it pushes back what all the homelessness provider agencies, the aid agencies, have been looking for, which was a better organization, a better strategic plan, a better sense of metrics for how we can improve our address of the homelessness issue. So that's pretty substantial. And I'm sure I'll be asking to add when we get to tentative agenda that for any new body that's constituted at the regional level, the county level, that my appointment to Home Sonoma be transferred to whatever new body that it turns out to be. And hopefully it all transpires quickly and we don't miss a beat in trying to provide service. That was a key thing. Next, from the Planning Commission, I think we all attended the Planning Commission's ULI TAP session, so I won't need to say too much about that, other than it was a tremendous first step towards what promises to be a very public and engaging general plan update session. So looking forward to more from that arena. Then the announcement came out this week that the D Street Bridge was going to be closed because of dredging. And my own personal thoughts on that is it just wished we'd have moved forward with crosstown connectors more rapidly than we had. We had the workshop, but then COVID kind of threw a wrench in getting to the next step after that. But if the Caulfield Crossing had been in, very easily traffic would be accommodated more from that. So I'm very anxious to see some action on that as we move into the next year. And then lastly, we have a proposal on the table, that we've been talking about for 100% affordable housing at the Corona Station proposed development. And I keep having a worry that we're missing the boat. We made so many decisions based on the need for that station and based on the timing of that need. And here we are, kind of 11th hour, and we don't have it all together. The potential to lose 130 affordable housing units at that area really has me concerned. I'm happy that staff is pushing really hard to try and get to corral all of the developer, the smart and all those, but what a lot to do before year end. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And next we go to Mr. Healy, Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. Sure. So the executive committee of the North Bay Division of the League of Cities did meet on Friday, but I'll defer on reporting on the division's activities until after the regular quarterly meeting this week. Thank you.
Okay, right, thank you. And on to Councilmember Kearney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had no committee meetings last week, but I did want to take a moment to thank all of the city staff and our members of our community that stepped up to help open. At one point, I think we had 6 or more shelters here in Petaluma, helping our neighbors to the northeast to evacuate and come to a safe refuge in Petaluma. We had 3 shelters run by city staff, and then at least 3 more at different community churches and entities. So I know Petaluma People Services was one of the other agencies that was key in that. And so thank you to the staff for all the hard work that they put in. We have folks that pivot from their normal day job to help run shelters and do a really, really good job of it. And so thank you to each and every one of you for doing that. Many of you that work for our city are salaried employees and don't get overtime to come in and do these extra things. And so it's greatly appreciated what you give up to help our community in a time of need. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to echo Gabe Kearney's comments. I had a transit advisory committee meeting that was canceled, so nothing to report on from my liaison positions, and also want to express my gratitude to staff for all that you did, and you do it so efficiently and so well. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to express my appreciation for staff. They really are very good at pivoting and getting these shelters open. And a huge shout out to Petaluma People Services as well. And really it just shows what a great community we are, how we can come together and get things done to help our neighbors to the north. And we're unfortunately getting pretty good at it. And I just want to thank everybody who was involved with that. I did not have any commission or board meetings since our last meeting, so I don't have anything to report on that front. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sonoma Clean Power met last Thursday. A couple of the highlights. 11 of the California Community Aggregate Agencies, which is what Sonoma Clean Power is, public power agencies, are discussing the possibility of a joint powers authority designed for the purpose of procuring large energy generation projects and or storage contracts. It is in the very early stages. Some seed money from each of the agencies has been put forth to look into it. And based on the staff report, participation in each individual purchase or project, it would be quite flexible. In other words, you can come in and out of it. So that's something for us to follow as we go forward, because that will probably continue on for the next 6 months before anything's finally decided. One of the programs that I've reported on is the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project, which involves the installation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure throughout the county. We had a program to establish to assist with that, budgeted $6.75 million to it. And the report back is that the agency received 253 applications, and the requested money was equal to $22.8 million. So potentially a very popular program. Decisions are going to be made at the state level as to which of the folks that applied will get into the program. But that's something that would really enhance the ability to charge EVs throughout the county. And lastly, as all of you have probably heard me say quite a few times, probably more than I probably should, that I had predicted that you would not be able to buy a gas vehicle in California by the year 2030. I've been saying that on this dais for about 2 years, maybe a year and a half. And the governor announced the goal of related exactly to that by 2035. So kudos to Governor Newsom. And I did receive a copy of correspondence from Jared, not from him, I got it from Jeff Cyphers of Sonoma Clean Power, Jared Blumenfeld, Secretary for Environmental Protection for the state of California, and Mary D. Nichols, Chair of the California Air Resources Board, that was sent to Andrew Wheeler, the Administrator of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. It's a 3-page letter, but I will just read a few lines from it. For those who believe that this is economically a bad decision. The auto industry as a whole, both in the United States and globally, is moving rapidly towards a zero-emission future. California now has 34 manufacturers of EVs and related equipment, and hundreds of thousands of Californians have jobs in the EV industry. In 2019, electric vehicles were California's second largest export, valued at more than $7 billion. At a time when your administration has overseen the highest unemployment rate in our nation's history, one would think you would want to replicate California's economic model. After all, since 2000, California's GDP growth outpaced the rest of the United States by 17%, while we aggressively reduced our greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot more detail in that, but I certainly appreciated that letter. And then actually, lastly, I would echo what Council Member Kearney mentioned about our staff, our nonprofit, PPSC, and others who worked on emergency services the past couple of weeks and really the past couple of months, and the comments of my colleagues up here on that. Thank you very much to everybody who was involved in providing shelter to those who were evacuated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I actually had a few committees this last period, including the Air District, which we had a very interesting presentation on Clean Building Compass, which is an online tool and it has, it's an extremely flexible and somewhat, they're describing it as a living document or tool, I think, in that it has the ability for 3 different kinds of people to use. And so you would click into it as whether or not you're an elected or you're a city or county administrator, like our city manager or our city attorney, or if you're a building building inspector or a planning and community development professional. You just click in as to what you are, and then you go to the next section, which is what results are you looking for, what areas, and the outcomes or result areas they have are health, resilience, affordability, safety, equity, climate mitigation. So depending on what you're looking at in your community, or if you have a problem and you want to see how's this been solved elsewhere, or how do you do this, these are where you would go. And then they have construction type, whether you're looking at new construction, existing construction, or renovations. It's an extremely agile and very versatile tool. It lives on, oh boy, I'm going to forget the Decarb website. And I have given the website to the city manager and our planning department. But if anybody else is interested in it, I think it really is something worth noodling around with for a while. And one of the people on our planning commission, not our planning commission, but our climate commission is one of the people who is instrumental in designing it, and that's Panama Bartholomew. So a Petaluma resident, and I feel like we're bragging, but that's okay. This is where we can do that, right? The other thing, we also had a Bay Area regional collaborative meeting, which is a meeting of a lot of the regional committees and commissions. And at that, it was announced that MTC is asking for 60% work from home from all businesses in the 9 Bay Area counties going forward. And so that will be a very interesting thing for us all to grapple with and decide how that's going to happen. For some people, it could just be 60% of your staff works from home. For other people, it might be you work from home 60% of the time. It's it's flexible in how you implement it, but that is the near-term goal that they are looking at. And as Councilmember King just was pointing out with the governor's announcement about no more gas cars after 35, there seems to be a very serious push on how are we actually going to be reaching these goals that we have set for ourselves. In that same vein, there was a discussion again about this clean building compass and at that meeting, and about how to obtain reach codes for the entire Bay Area counties. And that discussion included electrification of household appliances, kind of throwing over to the air district the idea of we already have very high standards on what kind of emissions these appliances can have. And now there's the idea that when your house heating system or your water heating system breaks down, it after a certain period, you can no longer replace it with a fossil fuel appliance. So that's a very big deal, because of course not all homes are have the electrical capacity to handle those kinds of appliances. So there's still a discussion going forward with how that is implemented in an equitable way and an affordable way for many. So that is something we're looking at, and that should be of interest. Councilmember McDonald pointed out the D Street Bridge closure, and I just want to say that we have all been so excited about the dredging, and as our city manager has the picture of the dredging behind her, done by Scott Hess. Thank you very much for sending us those photos, Scott. We have to acknowledge that it is giving us a little bit of inconvenience. And there will be a number of days now that we are not going to have the D Street Bridge. And, I have to say that, obtainable crosstown connectors are what we really need to be looking at sooner rather than later. And just trying to get around town and yesterday and today, I really think we need to really consider this as we go forward. I want to add my voice to the thanks for the fire support in this town. Everybody has said it so well, and I can't help but just reiterate that Petaluma just is always there for our neighbors. And this was a particularly difficult time to do it because it has been going on now since August. And we weren't called on to do this in August, but we are now. And, everybody steps forward. And I love the fact that our city staff takes the lead that reflects what is so alive in our community. So thank you all. Okay, so does our city manager want to speak after that?
Well, I think you just took words much more eloquently out of my mouth, Mayor. As you mentioned, as many of the council mentioned tonight, starting last 2 Sundays ago, September 27th, and continuing 24/7 throughout last week, our city holistically responded to the Glass and Shady fire by providing mutual aid to our neighboring jurisdictions for both police and fire. They provided communication support in the County and City Emergency Operations Center and stood up shelters to house our evacuated neighbors, and served as shelter managers and staff for those shelters, and provided for the needs of those evacuees, all the while following, COVID protocols. Some of our staff who were actually evacuated still came in to assist with those emergency operations and serve our community. And just in true Petaluma spirit, as mentioned tonight, our partners included New Life Christian Fellowship, Calvary Chapel of Petaluma, Petaluma Valley Baptist, Petaluma People Services, the Salvation Army, World Central Kitchen, Miriam Donaldson, North Bay Animal Services, and Allison Keeney at the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds. They all worked tirelessly. You can tell I think I need some sleep, with us to ensure our neighbors were cared for. It's just another incredible effort by Petaluma, and just could not be more proud of everyone coming together and just knocking out of the park. Additionally, we are getting preliminary information regarding the financial impact of COVID to the city, and it tracks with what we had estimated and presented to council in May. We will have a deficit of $6.5 million each year for the next 5 years to overcome, and next year that encompasses approximately $1.6 million of expected revenue losses due to the economic impacts from COVID, primarily sales tax and business license. Staff will be bringing a more detailed forecast in November when we have all the data available, but just wanted to let you know we're watching it regularly. So thank you, and that's my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now we're on to proclamations. We have 3 proclamations today, and our first one is Fire Prevention Week. And Jessica Powers is going to be receiving this, and she has a team of people to support her on that. And really, it couldn't be more fitting. Sorry. Okay, so the City of Petaluma proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, October 4th through 10th. Whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at the greatest risk of experiencing a fire. And whereas the City of Petaluma and Petaluma fire first responders are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city through prevention and education. And whereas U.S. Fire Department responded to 499,000 home fires in 2018, according to the National Fire Protection Association. And whereas 74% of all fire deaths occurred in the home, and whereas 2 of every 5 home fires started in the kitchen, with 31% of the fires resulting from unattended cooking. And whereas more than half of the reported non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves. And whereas children under 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. Whereas Petaluma residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on the stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. And whereas a home fire escape plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, working smoke alarms in all required locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting should be developed and practiced by all members of the household to know what to do in real fire situations. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme, Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, effectively serves to educate the public about the leading cause of U.S. home fires. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the Petaluma City Council do hereby proclaim October 4th through 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community. I urge all the people of Petaluma to develop a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practice it twice a year, and to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of fire and emergency services during Fire Prevention Month. Jessica.
Madam Mayor, Council Manager Flynn, and our Petaluma community, thank you for taking the time to recognize Fire Prevention Week and the dedicated PFD staff that work in the Fire Prevention Bureau. With me tonight is our team: Paula Dewicki, Fire Inspector; Devin Gambonini, Fire Inspector. I don't know if Enrique Ruiz was able to join as our plant examiner, as he is also a member of the Rancho Adobe Fire District. Our Secretary, Allison Kresge, Assistant Chief, Jeff Schock, and our Fire Chief, Chief Thompson. Combined, our team has over 100 years of fire department and public service experience. Each day we work to ensure our community is safe. And when we do our job successfully, you don't hear about it in the news. Though our media has been consumed the last few months with the wildland fires in our communities, counties, and state, we cannot forget the importance of home fire safety. This year's theme, Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, reminds us of the importance of fire safety in the kitchen, where nationwide over 31% of home fires start. We can serve up fire safety in our homes by being alert, never leaving unattended cooking, and always having a home escape plan in case it is needed. Throughout the month of October, we will be providing more home and kitchen fire prevention safety and information, including some interactive information on our social media and our website. You can stay tuned to all this information on our website, cityofpetaluma.org/Fire Prevention Week. As we continue to see wildfires increasing magnitude, please make sure your emergency plan includes preparing for public safety power shutoffs and evacuation provisions. If you and your family need help with this, please reach out to our outstanding staff. We are here to help. Again, thank you for taking an active role in fire prevention, as if it's predictable, it's preventable. Thank you. And just like that, Proby barks. He's been jacked up all night. He wanted to say something too, apparently.
I was going to ask you if that was a recording or if that was real.
No, apparently he wanted to say something too.
Good. So does anybody else who's with you tonight from the fire department want to speak? I don't know. I am not. Is there hands raised there?
Madam Mayor, our Chief Thompson is in the audience and wishes to speak.
I think we should let him.
You may speak now, Chief. I'm going to try promoting him to a panelist. Hold on just one second. Chief Thompson, are you there? I'm not sure what the issue is, Madam Mayor. We might want to move on.
Yeah, I see him, but I can see that his name is there and his mic is open, but I'm not hearing or seeing him on the screen either. So if you can get him to come up later, we have 2 more proclamations to read, and he could join in after one or 2 of those. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to read the City of Petaluma proclamation for California City's support for and declaration for Clean Air Day, October 7th, 2020. And this is whereas air pollution contributes to higher rates of cancer and heart and lung diseases, which adversely affect health. And whereas compromised lung health has been linked to poor outcomes in people infected with COVID-19. And whereas California has some of the most polluted regions in the United States, and whereas early studies find that people with COVID-19 who live in US regions with high levels of air pollution are more likely to die from the disease than people who live in less polluted areas, according to a new national study from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And whereas it is vital that we protect the health and well-being of our residents, visitors, and workforce. And whereas emissions from vehicles, industry, and even household sources significantly affected the natural environment, air quality, and well-being of residents, employees, and visitors of the city of Petaluma. And whereas the individual actions such as not idling vehicles, walking or biking to work and school, carpooling, and conserving energy can directly improve air quality in our region. And whereas everyone can play a role, whereas taking the pledge and participating in California Clean Air Day can be accomplished safely while wearing face coverings and practicing social distancing in your own household or neighborhood. And whereas education about air quality can raise community awareness, encourage our community to develop better habits, and improve our community health. And whereas Californians will be joining together across the state to clear the air on October 7th, 2020. And whereas the city of Petaluma is committed to the health of our residents, workforce, visitors, and community at large, now therefore it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the Petaluma City Council, do hereby proclaim that October 7th, 2020 be declared Clean Air Day in this city, and be it further resolved that we ask all city department heads to determine how their employees can participate in Clean Air Day as appropriate and report back on those actions. And be it further resolved that we encourage all residents, businesses, employees, and community members to participate in Clear Air Day and help clear the air for all Californians. I am going to receive this proclamation on behalf of our city as our Air District representative. And I just want to say that many of us actually are working from home, given the shelter-in-place mandates that we're still on. So that actually helps us make this a cleaner time. But Wednesday looks like it will be the first non-Spare the Air Day in quite a while. And in fact, this season we have had 41 Spare the Air Days, which is an all-time record. We have not had anything like that in the history of Spare the Air Days. So with the fires that we have all been experiencing, we have seen the effects of the air. In fact, some days have been the worst air measured any place on the earth. And I think that it's really important to remember that that air that we breathe in, it takes a long time to get out, and it does compromise our health. So if you don't have to go out, don't go out on these Spare the Air Days. I heard someone say that yellow is the new green on Spare the Air Days because they were so desperate to get outside. And I understand that feeling, but it really isn't. It really isn't safe, and you really should minimize what you don't have to do. So with that, I will go on to our final proclamation, unless we have gotten our fire chief able to speak.
I don't believe so, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, good. We have one more proclamation. So if he can do that, we'll try him once again. So this is the City of Petaluma proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. Whereas Petaluma recognizes that domestic violence affects 1 in 4 families in our local community, and that the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, and security based on the systemic use of emotional, physical, sexual, psychological, and economic control or abuse. And whereas the YWCA Sonoma County is a community-based, not-for-profit organization affiliated with the YWCA USA. YWCA Sonoma County embodies its mission to empower, educate, and advocate for domestic violence survivors and their children who find they are unsafe in their own homes. YWCA Sonoma County operates our community's only confidential safe house shelter, the only 24/7 domestic violence crisis hotline, the only therapeutic preschool serving one of our most vulnerable populations, children aged 3 to 5 years old, short and long-term trauma-enforced therapy services. And whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, sex, ages, sexual orientations, and income levels, stopping the cycle of vicious criminal assault in the home requires a coordinated effort between the criminal justice system and the agencies that provide services to victims, primarily reliant on the strong resolve and immense courage of survivors. And whereas only an informed community effort will put an end to the cycle of domestic violence, members of our community are encouraged to participate in YWCA's scheduled events and programs to support their mission to eliminate domestic violence in Sonoma County through awareness, education, and empowerment. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the Petaluma City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2020 in Petaluma as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I believe we have the Chief Executive Officer of the YWCA of Sonoma County, Madeline Keegan O'Connell, here to speak on this.
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Gosh, you've got a really jammed agenda tonight with some very, very important topics. And Honorable Mayor and the esteemed members of the City Council, on behalf of YWCA Sonoma County, our board of directors, our employees, our volunteers, and mostly the families in our care, I just want to take a moment and thank you so much for honoring the work that we do in the community every day. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but my goodness, our community and our state and our country and our world have our hands really full with a number of very trying circumstances. And yet, through it all, I want you to know, for your community in beautiful Petaluma, that YWCA Sonoma County continues to answer the call from local families who are grappling with violence inside their own homes. We thought that shelter in place was a good thing, and yet in terms of families that deal with the stressors of life in a way that seem unimaginable, the shelter in place is actually a defeating proposition, if you will. And I will say that over these last 6 months, YWCA has been bracing for what we know will be a wave of additional calls to our crisis hotline, and that day has arrived. We are very busy answering crisis calls 24/7 every day of the year. Our shelter remains in full operation. Our therapeutic preschool has gone to a very smaller cohort class size there at the school, and then providing, of course, distance learning options for the remainder of our preschool class. And then our therapy services have all gone to something I'm sure you're all very familiar with. It's the telehealth method of communicating in a virtual setting, much like we're doing right here. So again, on behalf of all of us, it is our commitment to Sonoma County since 1975 and certainly into the future that we will be here to support families dealing with violence in their homes. And I thank you all very much for your time and attention to the mission of YWCA.
Thank you very much, Madeline, and keep up the good work. Okay, that concludes our proclamations, and not seeing Leonard's hand up, we will go to general public comment. And I will ask first if our clerk has any public comments that have been received in the clerk's office.
3 comments have been posted online with the agenda.
Thank you very much. And then I will go to our moderator to facilitate public comment. And I see it looks like 7 hands are up. So we'll 3 minutes each, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are now 9 hands up. So I think I'd recommend, if we're trying to stay within 20 minutes.
Yes, okay. That number jumped. We will go to 2 minutes each for public comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. During general public comments, the public is invited to make comments on items of public interest that are within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction and that are not listed on the agenda. Public comments are limited up to 3 minutes, in this case, 2 minutes per person or 20 minutes total. Please raise your hand in Zoom to be called on in turn. Attendees will be muted when their time expires or when their comments have concluded, whichever comes first. Speakers are encouraged to be respectful. Threats of violence and obscenity are grounds for removal from this meeting. And please, when you are unmuted, state your name for the record. So I will share my screen timer. And our first speaker is Mr. Springhorn. You may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
My name is Scott Springhorn. I attest and affirm the following statements are true, accurate, and within my personal knowledge. I've spoken publicly many times about the critical need for a wireless antenna need test conducted by a professional engineer and a 12-month report of anonymous wireless call logs for the 3-mile area around the Petaluma Creamery. We have been told many times by the M Group that they are working on it and it will be ordered as soon. As of today, we still have notified that it has been ordered. The current tolling agreement for this project extends the deadline for a final decision to January 29th, 2021. This date may seem far away, but it is not. There are 3 bodies that must rule on this project. The HCPC will begin hearings in November, the Planning Commission in December, and the City Council in late January. The M Group therefore must order a drive test and demand these call logs as soon as possible. The M Group also told us that there has been no new submittals for the applicants. Therefore, it is safe to conclude that the applicants are sticking with their original plans, not respecting our local municipal code, which calls for them to scale their project back from a maximum of 500,000 watts to 1,500 watts. That decision by the applicant could be setting up a real fight, which could land the city in court. If the applicant is also unwilling to voluntarily provide these requested anonymous call logs to show the percentage of completed versus dropped calls in a 3-mile radius of the Petaluma, then the city must demand these records. It has been over 6 weeks since the city first asked for these call logs. Not providing this data is bad faith on the applicant's part, which in addition to not submitting a new proposal to address the new minor facility, not being up to compliance with this ammonia cooling system, being out of compliance with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and not giving up relevant information requested by the city. These applicants are not being respectful neighbors, but are only interested in the bottom line at the expense of the public safety, privacy, and property values of the Petaluma residents in the surrounding area. I ask again that the M Group order the drive test and require Verizon to submit the call logs as soon as possible. By doing so, the city is doing its best and protect itself from being itself from a lawsuit. I express no matter of mere concern, but solely matters of substance, fact, and law. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Next speaker is Catherine Dodd, followed by a heart song. Catherine, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
My name is Catherine Dodd. I'm a registered nurse and an active member of the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Humans. I'm speaking against the cell tower at the Petaluma Creamery. I'd like to associate myself with remarks of Mr. Springhorn. I realize that environmental and health issues can't be used as a reason to deny approvals for cell antennas, but as the planners and decision makers about the future of Petaluma, I believe it's essential that you make your decisions with the understanding of the scientifically proven effects of exposure to RFR. There are over 1,200 peer-reviewed scientific articles from studies that document damage to cells, including the breakage of DNA strands. Unfortunately, the scientific debate's been hijacked by corporate interests from telecom industry who espouse that non-ionizing radiation is not dangerous because it doesn't have thermal effects. Have any of you ever picked up your phone or laptop and felt how warm it is? That's a thermal effect. The guidelines were set in 1996 by physicists and engineers with no biological or health expertise. Today, we are chronically exposed 24/7 to non-ionizing radiation from multiple antennas, which increase based on the power levels, which were just discussed. We're not talking about just exposures from antennas atop buildings, but also from cell phones. Longitudinal studies show adverse effects from during pregnancy. They also show increased diabetes in adolescents. Several of you expressed concern about climate change. I encourage you to realize that wireless radiation is an energy guzzler, and I hope that you will engage in the future collaboration to bring a fiber optic cable to and through the premises. Mayor Barrett, you stated your priorities are listen to residents, do what's best for the people in the neighborhoods of Petaluma, keep the long-term impacts of today's decisions in mind at all times. This is an opportunity to do just that. Don't ruin the aesthetic charm of the downtown with this antenna, and plan for the future with fiber, not a proliferation of profit antennas.
Thank you, Catherine. Next speaker is Erica Hartsong, followed by E. Burrell. So Erica, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Thank you. It can be quite traumatizing to not feel safety or solace in and around your own home. There's no place to go to get away from the noise emitted by the Petaluma Creamery cooling tower. It can begin at 6 a.m. or 10 p.m. It can go on for a few minutes or many hours. It has been incredibly harmful to my quality of life and psyche over the last few months. As a nurse, I work with Special Forces veterans and traumatized people. I am noticing in myself similar symptoms from hearing this sound while at home. I understand both the owner of the creamery and the engineer do not hear this sound. The owner has been invalidating, discrediting, aggressive, and bullying. There are ample reports of people being under great distress of low frequency noise, often not heard by others. If no support or remediation is given, hearing the sound elicits increased emotional reactions that have adverse health consequences. Reported symptoms from neighbors are headaches, anxiety, reduced work performance, disturbed rest, concentration difficulties, and irritation. The throbbing characteristic of this low-frequency noise contributes to a feeling of anger, resentment, and discomfort occurring as the noise intrudes into our thoughts and moods or interferes with activity. I know it does not violate the noise ordinance. Low-frequency noise is not equally loud to mid and high-frequency sound. There are secondary phenomena that occur in the form of vibration, rattling, and permeation of structures like windows and walls. Low frequency sounds are less well habituated to as compared to higher frequency sounds, meaning that the longer this goes on, the deeper our mental and physical health will decline. Effects due to lower frequency components are estimated to be more severe than for community noise in general, leading to public health problems. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter, and I look forward to hearing what we as a community can do with the creamery to remedy this.
Thank you, Erica. Next speaker is E. Burrell, followed by Samantha Buller. So E. Burrell, please stand for the record and you may unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Everly Ewing. The Petaluma Creamery is damaging the health of my neighborhood. I'm not speaking about the Verizon project. I'm talking about the deterioration of the neighborhood since the creamery changed ownership. Personally speaking, noise is the primary problem, but that's not the only. Creamery has ignored clean air laws, illegally discharged sewage, contaminated our river. Diesel trucks idle illegally, releasing cancer-causing pollutants. Its ammonia-based cooling is undergoing upgrades required for proper management of toxic chemicals. If this system had been well maintained, why is it now taking months to repair? There have been 2 fires in the facility in the past few years, the most recent one in June. The fire occurred in an area which appears to be close to the ammonia system. The fire department report does not show that there was any kind of investigation as to why this fire occurred. How much of a risk did that pose to the neighborhood's health and safety? The Petaluma Creamery that exists today in no way resembles the one that was operating when we bought our home over 30 years ago. Last week, I talked to several truckers as they idled their diesel engines. They were bringing milk in from Idaho, and they bring in multiple shipments a week. Its main purpose is no longer to serve local dairies. Back to the noise issue. This is being created by a cooling tower. I would rather listen to a leaf blower than the noise it creates. We have tried for years to work with the owner. We've even offered multiple times to pay for an acoustic consultant to analyze the noise and to look at remedies, which might not even be that costly. The owner continues to ignore complaints, ignore offers of help, and most recently said his lawyer told him he does not need to speak with us. This is why we felt there was no alternative than to bring it to the council's attention. What can the city do? One thing is to change the noise ordinance. An engineer at a local acoustic company told us that Petaluma's noise ordinance is too lenient and too simplistic. Its allowable noise levels are far higher than many larger cities. Our noise ordinance does not regulate low frequency noise, which is well recognized to be the most annoying. Other cities do this. Finally, the city needs to stop making allowances which have permitted health protecting regulations to be ignored. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments. Next speaker is Samantha Buller, followed by Sheila Baker. Samantha, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
My name is Samantha Buller, and I would like to note that the Petaluma Creamery is still out of compliance with its ammonia cooling system, as well as out of compliance with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. On July 24th, 2020, the M Group and the Planning Department sent a letter to the applicant of the 16 antenna wireless project stating some of the following. The city raised concerns regarding the ammonia refrigeration system and other issues that have not been addressed by the creamery. The safety concerns identified in these reports, the Planning Division also determined that it could not recommend support of the proposal and was prepared to recommend denial of the 16 antenna project at the publicly noticed Planning Commission. The applicant and Verizon again asked for the tolling agreement date to be pushed out to have more time to look at these issues. The M Group stated that in order for this application to be eligible for approval, the creamery needed to fix or replace the ammonia cooling system and submit a new project plan that would be consistent with its status as a minor wireless facility. Neither have been completed to date. It should also be explained that according to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, that the Petaluma Creamery has been out of compliance with its boilers and certain emissions since 2007. They have opened and closed multiple applications to do the work in the time since, and compliance has not been reached as the applicant, the Petaluma Creamery, incorrectly kept filing out their applications with the BAA QMD. The most recent application is open. It has been determined that it must have the work completed by December 31st, 2020. As of today, the work is still not done and they are out of compliance. The applicant and the creamery have not dealt with these issues for years, and even after 16 months of this proposed project, the city has asked the creamery and the applicant to deal with these issues and have given them ample time to do this. The applicant will again try to push out the tolling agreement if they cannot do the work in time. Do not let the creamery and Verizon push out the tolling agreement again. They have had over 6 months compliant and still they are not. I have expressed no matter of mere concern, but solely a matter of substance, fact, and law. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Samantha. Next speaker is Sheila Baker, followed by Heather Muir. Sheila, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Hello, this is Sheila Baker here. I avid bicyclist around town and around the county. While searching the web, the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition website, I found their SonomaSafeRoutes.org and the SonomaSafeRoutes.org website. And Safe Routes is school for Sonoma is a function of Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, as it is every bicycle coalition in the country. Really, it was started by the late great Deb Hubsmith of Marin County, who created it in the whole country. And this month is International Walk and Roll Challenge Month. There are unfortunately only a couple of days left of doing these really fun things. And I apologize. I'm sure that Eris Weaver has spoken to you, to either the City Council or PBAC already about this, but I just wanted to kind of remind that this is challenge, Walk and Roll Challenge Month, and it's great. So please do check out SonomaSafeRoutes.org, SafeRoutes.org, and check out these wonderful little activities for kids this month for the Safe Routes to School month and International Walk and Roll to Anywhere month. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheila. Next speaker is Heather Muir, followed by Paul G. Heather, you may unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, my name is Heather Muir, and I'm a neighbor of the proposed wireless telecommunication facility that's being proposed for the roof of the Petaluma Creamery. I'm here to speak against the wireless telecommunication facility based on the following: the residential character of our neighborhood, the historic nature of our neighborhood, and the recognized historic status of the Creamery facility itself. A wireless telecommunication facility would forever change the landscape of this residential and historic neighborhood. Many of us live in homes at the turn of the century, and it will adversely affect the historic experience of the Creamery itself. In addition to the conflict with the residential and historic nature of the neighborhood, this site is an extremely poor choice for the proposed wireless facility, given the Creamery operations, which are in direct conflict with the telecommunication use in terms of fire, safety, and environmental risks. Earlier this evening, you had 2 proclamations that are relevant to the operations. You mentioned in the fire prevention proclamation that if it's predictable, it's preventable. The fire risk at this facility meets these guidelines. In the Clean Air Day proclamation, air quality was referenced. Following on what previous speakers this evening have spoken to, the existing operation is out of compliance with air quality in terms of idling diesel trucks and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Thank you for representing our community and declining this project and for your time this evening.
Thank you, Heather. Next speaker is Paul G, followed by Amelia. So Paul, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
I attest and affirm the following statements are true, accurate, and within my personal knowledge. We need to set up a meeting with City Manager Peggy Flynn or Assistant City Manager Brian Cochran. We've been trying to get that meeting for over 3 months. When writing emails and calling Flynn and Cochran since June 17th and 18th, I can count 0 phone calls returned and only 1 terse email from each over the last 3.5 months. That's not very good, folks. Either the city of Petaluma is open to doing business with the public, important and equal stakeholders to the proposed Petaluma Creamy Cell Tower project, or the city is not. The evidence continually points to the fact that the city of Petaluma is closed to doing business with the public. If that is the case, then please do us all a favor and make it official by the city of Petaluma doing the following. Number 1, stop lying about it and pretending the city is open for business to the public, as the evidence proves otherwise. Number 2, pass a moratorium against processing any WTFs during national COVID-19 pandemic emergency, as it is unnecessary and dangerous to continue this activity because it is not essential, because the Petaluma city is not equipped to perform its duties and obligations to provide public safety in this matter. Look, we've been asking for things of the M group for calls for updates and 90-minute inspection of records we've had twice before. We get no response. I got one response from Jordan Green that confused my immediate public records request. It wasn't a records request, it was an inspection request. Oh, she thought I was a CPRA and I had to wait some kind of 10-day timeline. That is not true. So I have written again on September 25th and again on September 28th, asking once again for a Zoom meeting to try to settle some of these problems, which are very, very chronic. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next speaker is Amelia, followed by Taryn Obaid. Amelia, you may unmute yourself and please state your name for the record.
My name is Amelia Packard. I'm 16 years old and I've lived in Petaluma my entire life. I'm very passionate about Black Lives Matter, and I believe that there is a program that can be used to address issues with policing and police violence that would benefit our community. That program is called CAHOOTS, which stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. This program diverts nonviolent 911 calls to a team of experienced mental health professionals and medical responders. CAHOOTS was started in Eugene, Oregon as a mental health crisis intervention program and has since expanded to many other US cities. CAHOOTS works with local police departments in order to create a more safe system of crisis intervention that better meets the needs of the community. I'm a member of our local Petaluma community, as well as a member of our county, and I've seen how effective we can be when the police and city council work together with citizens for change. Our community, in coalition with the police department, can institute a program like this in Petaluma. In Eugene in 2018, the CAHOOTS program cost about 1.3% of the annual police budget while assisting in 20% of the calls. Petaluma needs a program like this to better protect and serve our community, and it not only benefits citizens who would like to see change in how policing is done, it saves the police department thousands and potentially millions of dollars depending on the size of the town and the effectiveness of the program. The current 2021 budget for the Petaluma Police Department is around $29 million, the largest share of the budget aside from public works and utilities. But if only a tiny fraction of those funds were put toward better mental health crisis intervention, lives could be saved. I noticed that this spring, the Petaluma City Council voted in favor of an initiative provided by the Petaluma Police Department for the purchase of $80,000 worth of guns, similar to AR-15s. And I believe that these funds could be better used for programs and alternatives like CAHOOTS. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amelia. Next speaker is Taryn Obaid, followed by M. Ann Sullivan. Taryn, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Thank you. Mayor Barrett, City Council members, City Manager Flynn, and City Attorney Danley. My comment here serves as supplemental to my written comment, which you received earlier today. In recent years, Americans have watched in dismay and shame as those who hold elected office routinely demonstrate dishonesty and egregiously thwart the law. Citizens expect better. At the Tuesday, September 22nd, City Council meeting, City Council member Kathy Miller very publicly and falsely asserted that I had filed a lawsuit against the city of Petaluma. And she has subsequently repeated that false statement in written correspondence. That statement is false. I did not file a lawsuit against the city. I consider City Council member Miller's statement defamatory. It puts me in a false light and threatens my reputation and livelihood. I ask for an immediate public retraction and for these defamatory statements to cease. I expect our city and our elected officials to, if not be honest, at minimum, act legally. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. Next speaker is M. Ann Sullivan, followed by Noah Miska. M. Ann Sullivan, please unmute and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Moira Sullivan, and I wanted to make a comment on the ULI TAP presentation that was given at the last City Council meeting on the general plan update. I found that one of the slides in particular that talked about the stakeholders that were interviewed, that it was rife with developers and commercial real estate interests, and that the public was not invited, that no small businesses were invited, and that the Climate Change Commission distressingly was not invited. So the folks that made up that slide were acclaimed companies who are going to build in our 350 acres of our river wetlands. Merloni Geyer, who sites large big box stores and who built Deer Creek. Spanos, who intends to build out all of Petaluma Boulevard North. Basin Street, who we're all familiar with and who may be the secret developer on the fairgrounds that is not being disclosed to us, and Keegan Copen. And so I'd like to say that where we're at 820% of our RINA numbers for luxury housing, so that we're grossly overbuilt, and the M Group consultants said that we do not get a credit for our next building cycle for being overbuilt, that we are putting enormous strain on our citizens, that we are not growing sustainably, we are not approving workforce housing, and we are not respecting the environment, particularly our river wetlands. So I would like to see us rectify this imbalance, and that we need to be a lot more aggressive on our general plan update. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next speaker is Noah Miska, followed by Julia. Noah, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Hi, yeah, I'm calling in to just request, I spoke on this at the last meeting, but to request that the Petaluma City Council act on the recommendations of the listening circles that the recommendations that came out of the listening circles that were hosted by North Bay Organizing Project and Petaluma Blacks for Community Development around policing in Petaluma. I know that other folks have been speaking to this too, and I don't want to repeat much, but I think that it's significant that the first recommendation from that report was to defund the police. And I know that that is a point of contention for many people. There are wildly different understandings of what the role of the police is and should be in our community. But I've said things like this before, and I will continue to say them. I humbly ask that those of us who have the power to change these systems try and understand where the call to defund the police comes from, because it isn't just about like taking away resources and leaving people vulnerable to harm. It's about redirecting resources towards programs that actually create deeper safety for all of us. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noah. Next speaker is Julia Landry Purcell. Julia, you may unmute yourself and please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Julia Modell. I want to second what Noah just said. I think he said it really well, and also what Amelia said earlier. I do think we need to defund the police significantly, and a great first step of that would be listening to the listening circle's recommendations. I know y'all said that you were doing a workshop with the people who had created that, sat in on those listening circles, and if that's already taken place, if it's not already taken place, I hope it's widely publicized. I would love to attend the discussion. I hope it's open to the public. Also, I really like what Amelia said. I think cahoots is critical. I remember being in a city council meeting in early June, and I think Mayor Barrett and a few others had not heard it. Someone in public comment had brought up cahoots model, and some people had not heard of it, which no shame. That is also when I started looking into it. But I hope you all have been looking very seriously into these alternatives to policing models in this time in between. And I hope we can make some actions on it, because I think the community is very serious and really looking for change regarding police. Thank you. I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Julia. Next speaker is Landry Purcell. Landry, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. Hi, I spoke about this before, but I just want people to understand in regards to the cell tower that's going up or that's proposed to go up and become a giant antenna farm at the Petaluma Creamery. There are roughly 1,500 children of all ages that go to school within a 5-mile radius. It's important to know that we're exposed to 100 million times more electromagnetic radiation than our grandparents were, and part of it is from towers and microwave antennas. Cell towers are being placed right next to schools where our most vulnerable population spends more than half their day learning, playing, and eating. Many experts in this field of study believe that the rise in autism, brain tumors, and leukemia in children is caused by the exposure to radiation at home and at school. It's because children are growing and changing at a rapid rate. Their brains and skulls are still developing, and that means they are more vulnerable to anything that can affect them at a cellular level. Radiation can do that. Babies and children will be particularly sensitive to the mutagenic and carcinogenic effects of the radio frequency radiation. It's therefore criminal to place all of these aerials on or near our schools. That was said by Dr. Helen Caldicott, pediatrician and co-founder of Physicians for Social Responsibility. We really need to think about what we're putting near our children's schools. This is a terrible idea. Please fight it. Thank you.
Thank you, Landry. And Madam Mayor, that is the last hand we have raised, so I recommend we close general public comment.
Thank you, Patrick. And I will close public comment at this time. And I know we can't discuss anything that was brought up in general public comment, but I really would like to ask staff to get back to the council about the noise issue at the creamery. I don't recall hearing that before from the public on this issue. So with not seeing any other hands from council members, we will move to, there's no minutes to be approved. And so we have approval of the proposed agenda for October 19th. And Kevin McDonald, I have your hand up. You have your hand up?
I do. Thank you very much. I do wish to motion that we include an assignment to replace Home Sonoma Leadership Council appointment with the Continuum of Care appointment. I believe we do that as consent or by acclaim, but whatever staff wants to do there. Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, you're on mute, but I will go ahead and second that.
Thank you for that. See, that's why you need to interrupt. But before there's a second there, but I want to also call on Councilmember Miller.
I was just going to second,
Oh,
Madam Mayor.
sorry, he beat you to that.
He did, and that's
I
fine.
was on mute. I'm sorry. So we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, do we need to vote on those? Is that just part of a vote on accepting the proposed agenda?
Accepting the proposed agenda is sufficient.
Well, it assumes though that there's no opposition to this. So if anybody opposes this, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing that, so we will assume that that can be on the new agenda. So we have a motion and a second for the October 19th agenda, and we'll have a roll call vote.
Barrett?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
Kearney?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And now we're on to the consent calendar. There are 5 items on the consent calendar, and item E, which is council ratification of emergency declaration by acting emergency services director. Council member Kearney is recusing himself from that for business reasons or occupational reasons. If we want to make a motion, let's do it on the first 4, and then we can have a vote on the second. Is Council member Kearney, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move items A through D, and I am recusing on item E out of an abundance of caution as I work for the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And in the declaration, we are asking for things from my agency. So that's why I'm recusing. Thank you.
Thank you. And Council member Miller?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we will have a roll call vote on items 3A through D.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, there's an attendee with their hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
At this point, members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand in Zoom and we'll call on you in turn. You all have 3 minutes. The first speaker is Ben Peters. And Ben, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I would like to make a comment on item 3C. I'd like to again call attention to the city staff request for a recusal of competitive purchasing requirements. So this is for an auxiliary engine for the VACCON sewage water jetting system. So just a couple questions for the staff. There was obviously some potential warranty issues with this auxiliary engine. I don't know if any warranty claims were filed. That wasn't in the staff report. In the staff report, it mentioned that a new auxiliary engine would extend the useful life of this vehicle by 10 years. I'd like to know if the bronze, silver, or gold one-touch service packages were considered part of this refurbishment, as that would indeed extend the useful life of the entire vehicle and not just the auxiliary engine. Lastly, as it relates to the environmental impact and this being Clean Air Day this week, I'd like to ask if staff considered the refurbishment of the vehicle to compressed natural gas. These types of large, heavy-duty vehicles, while not particularly available for electric motors, do have the ability to run on compressed natural gas. Now, I know the city has invested considerable funds in a renewable natural gas or biogas facility at the Ellis Creek wastewater treatment facility, with the express purpose of running these types of vehicles on compressed or renewable natural gas. Now, the type of engine that we're considering, perhaps now would be the time to consider a CNG replacement auxiliary engine and not hitting the easy button. Again, please consider the environmentally friendly alternative, which would be renewable natural gas from the city's own wastewater treatment station. Now, I know I can't require city staff to comment. I think there were a couple items in there that city council might ask staff to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And that is the only speaker whose hand is raised, Madam Mayor. And you're muted again, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, so close comment on items A through D. And we have a motion and a second, and unless anyone wants to hear from staff on those questions. Okay, we'll just go ahead with the roll call vote.
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Kearney,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And on to item consent calendar item 3E, the council ratification of the emergency declaration by acting emergency services director. And I see Kathy Miller has her hand up.
I'll move the item, Madam Mayor.
Okay, is there a second? Count us, Mayor Fisher.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Is there any public comment on this item?
Members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand in Zoom and we will call on you in turn. I see no hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll close public comment on this item and ask for a roll call vote.
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Kearney recused.
Thank you very much. And now we're on to public hearings. And we only have the one item that is measure 4A, or resolution 4A, approving a general plan amendment to modify the land use designation and introduction, first reading, of an ordinance to approve a zoning map amendment for the corresponding change in the zoning designation of the city-owned parcel located at 27 Howard Street. And this is Mr. Ursu.
Good evening, Mayor Barrett, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to introduce this item to the council this evening. Just want to make sure you can all see my screen. So this item is a city-initiated request to amend the general plan and zoning map for the property at 27 Howard Street. 27 Howard Street is located mid-block between Western and Bassett. It backs up to City Hall property. These are this is the City Hall property. This is English Street here. The property is currently designated for civic uses and is also designated for residential, or excuse me, public, semi-public uses in the general plan land use designation. And the proposal is to change that to diverse, low-density residential. The zoning is civic uses, the CF zoning district, and the proposal is to change it to R3. The general plan has several policies that are applicable in this situation. The three that are applicable are listed here. The first is to preserve the overall scale, character of an established residential neighborhood. This change would allow the city to sell the property for residential use. It was originally constructed in 1935 as a single-family residence. The city purchased the property in 1980 and then converted it to city office use in 2004. This would allow it to revert back to residential use. The second policy encourages flexibility in building form and the nature of activities allowed in a building over time. That's exactly what is happening here in this situation. And then the third policy is to maintain a downtown presence for government and other civic functions. The city hall still remains in the downtown, and so there's no change in that aspect. We also looked at the zoning of the R3 zone. This would be in the R3 zone. It complies with all of the development standards of the R3. So there would be no inconsistencies created as a result of the change in the zoning. At its meeting on August 11, we presented this to the Planning Commission as is required under state law before a change is made to the zoning regulations or the general plan. A recommendation by the Planning Commission is required. The Planning Commission recommended the council proceed with the changes to the general plan and zoning. There was also extensive discussion as to whether or not there should be a restriction on the future use of the home, whether it should be restricted to a lower below market rate. In the end, the Planning Commission acknowledged that there is a need and deferred to the City Council as to whether or not this property should be restricted for lower income households. So with that, we recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution, which is attachment 1 to your staff report, that would change the land use designation from public, semi-public to diverse, low density residential. And zoning changes are done by ordinance. So you would introduce an ordinance this evening to amend the zoning on the property from civic facilities to R3, residential R3. One thing I would like to point out on page 2 of the staff, or excuse me, of attachment 2, there are a couple of typos. There's a reference to Exhibit 1. That reference to Exhibit 1 is to the zoning map. We included an excerpt of the zoning map in Section 2 of the ordinance. So we can replace Exhibit 1 with Section 2. And so that's just a real minor change to the proposed ordinance in attachment 2. Also, I'd like to point out that prior to the Planning Commission meeting, we received one letter in support of the change. And I believe it was yesterday, we received an email from the neighbors at 31 Howard who expressed concern with prior use of the property as a homeless shelter. I responded to that email, and that's provided in the list of attachments in the public correspondence that's on the in the agenda packet. And so that concludes my report, and available for any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ursu. Is there anybody on the council who has any questions? I see Kevin McDonald's hand is up. So, Mr. McDonald.
Perhaps not a question, but more I want to thank staff for that report and add a little something. You know, council individually and collectively gets to speak its mind on affordable housing, and their positions are publicly known. Less so with the Planning Commission. It was shocking how overwhelming the Planning Commission spoke up on the need for affordable housing in town, and heartwarming. And the motion that was being proposed was to write a resolution, or to add to a resolution for council action, which was viewed by most of the Planning Commission as a little bit of an overreach. And so I just wanted to rate what staff did say well, but the Planning Commission really stepped up for this having some sort of affordable component, and then also stating that it trusted the council's decision on that matter. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the council who would like to respond to that or add their opinion about that? Is there any opposition to having this property designated low affordable? Okay, all right. So let's open public comment. This is a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing and open public comment. Is there any, excuse me, from the city clerk, did you get anything on this other than what was referenced in the presentation?
There's the one public comment referenced in the presentation that's attached to the agenda. That's all we've received.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to speak on this item in this public hearing, please raise your hand in Zoom and you will be called on in turn. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Looking at the attendees, I see no hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I will close public comment, bring it back to the council, and I will call on Vice Mayor Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I would ask staff about the implication of if we were designating this for affordable housing, what would be how would we do it, and what would be the implication?
I think the implications are that the home would be sold at a level that the council determined would be affordable. Depending on the affordability level, it may count towards the RENA allocation, depending at the various levels that exist. And the city would receive fewer funds based on the level of affordability that it's sold at.
Okay. And do you know what those differences are, like percentage-wise?
Oh, I don't have the numbers at the tip of my fingertips here. It's generally the affordability levels for the very low income are levels that are 50% affordable at households that do not make more than 50% of the area median income.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess the question is the difference between what we could sell the house for at market rate and what it would sell for.
Yeah, I did not look into the market rate value of that home, and I don't know if there was an appraisal done. I see planning manager Hines is also here, so
yes,
if you want to add anything.
Well, and I think she was wanting to talk, so let's let her see if she can answer that question.
I can't answer specifically the question of the sale estimate as affordable or not, but I will reference when the city sells the property, there are some notification requirements that the city does. And Eric, please jump in if anything to add. But it is required that the city do a notification, and I believe that affordable housing providers are one of the requirements that we would have to notify before or as we're putting it on the market, or slightly before we're putting it on the market. And they have an opportunity to respond. It doesn't require that the city take that price, that bid from an affordable housing provider, but it does kind of make sure that they are one of the people to get the sale notification of the property for the city to have as part of, if they want to respond, to have as part of the consideration. There's a list of other entities that notification is required, but I remember that affordable housing providers are one of the ones that are on that list. So it allows kind of without the information right now in terms of whether it would be deed restricted proactively, it does allow that kind of additional level of notification and consideration by the city.
That's, Madam Mayor and Council, that's correct. Heather's providing summary information from the new and greatly expanded surplus property law that's been recently enacted about its noticing provisions, both that affordable housing providers would receive notice among other entities, and that the city would not be required, but it would be permitted to to approve purchase by such an entity for affordable housing. I would also mention, and I think it was clear from Heather and Emmanuel's comments, that I don't believe we have a current appraisal to be able to start estimating what the delta might be in terms of revenue that may result from sale. And I would also note that the action that's before you tonight is consistent with disposition of the property for housing, whether affordable or market rate. And if it were to be the council's decision to direct that it be for an affordable sale, there's a whole process that would follow. That's not before the council tonight. There's a whole process that would follow pursuant to the surplus property law and other law that the council would have an opportunity to give that direction. And in anticipation of the council's and in support of the council's discretion with respect to that, the planning commission chose to defer that decision to the council rather than make a specific recommendation about that. So hopefully that's helpful information. I'd be happy to help answer.
And I don't believe we have a formal appraisal yet. We have comps for the that we've staff has talked to realtors, and we do have comps to kind of get an idea, but we don't have actual appraisal on the property yet.
Thank you. And did the city manager want to run in on that?
Thank you. And Heather, thanks for mentioning the comps. That funding will go to the renovation of the West Wing at City Hall, which will be fairly extensive. So that's why we're looking at the highest and best value of that house.
Okay, thank you. So Vice Mayor, did you get your questions answered? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Healy was next, followed by Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you. So I think we should go ahead and approve the items as recommended tonight with respect to the potential of making it permanently affordable. I would recommend that staff outreach to the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County, which has been our go-to nonprofit provider for ownership affordable and makes it affordable in perpetuity as opposed to just the first buyer. So, but as I believe the city attorney was saying, we need to take the actions tonight, whether it's going to be affordable or market rate. So that would, and with that, I will make the motion to approve the staff recommendation with the caveat that staff should outreach to Housing Land Trust and report back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you very much. I'm prepared to second that, and then just add comment for public benefit that there are different kinds of affordable housing, and they're all necessary to meet our goals. And the one Councilman Healy suggested is probably what's a very appropriate solution for this site. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember King.
Thank you. I'll second Council. Has that been seconded yet?
No, it has been seconded.
Okay, I thought I heard that, but wanted to be sure. But my comment was, obviously we can't make this decision tonight. There was some other questions raised by Councilmember Fisher that I'm interested in hearing the answers to with a little more specificity that can be done tonight. But beyond that, I think that was the end of my comments.
What other things did you want to hear answers to?
No, I said I wanted to confirm that what we need is a full evaluation from our staff as to what our options are, including, as has been discussed, affordable housing options. And I agree with Councilmember Healy's comments about the outreach. So those are my comments. Nothing more, I think.
Okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any hands raised unless our city manager wanted to speak again. No, and Mr. King, yes, you just spoke. Okay. So is there any public, did we already had the public comment? So we can go ahead with the vote.
Barrett?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
Kearney?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Miller.
Miller, do,
Yes, sorry.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I
Motion passes unanimously.
saw her nod, but I don't think that was enough. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we know that item 4B will be on the December 7th calendar. And as we're getting ready to adjourn, we'd like to say goodbye to our Planning Commission Chair, Patrick Streeter, who is moving out of town and will be leaving his work on our Planning Commission, and we will miss him very much. So good luck, Patrick. And with that, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.